Oh, your hands are nice and warm. And from what we can tell, it's a fairly happy marriage. They're married for about 20 years. They have a daughter, Mary, who goes on to be called Bloody Mary. But when she's 5, just Mary is fine. Now the problem is, Catherine of Aragon never gave Henry a son. And Henry wanted lots and lots of sons to continue on the Tudor line after him. On top of this, he really wanted to sleep with Anne Boleyn. So, Henry goes up to Anne Boleyn and says, okay, I know I slept with your sister, and I know I probably also slept with your mother, but I'd really like to sleep with you. What do you say? And Anne Boleyn says, no. I did not expect that to work. I had an American family about 2 months ago, and this 17-year-old girl at the beginning had been like, I volunteer as tribute, because she'd watched too much of the Hunger Games. And I said the same thing to her. I said, I slept with your sister, I slept with your mother, can I sleep with you? And she said, okay. And her dad was in the background going, no! Anne Boleyn says no. And Henry says, please, and she says,
marry me.
And he says, please, and she says,
no.
Yep. What she says, you're right, is if you like it, you have to put a ring on it. Okay? Yeah, she wanted to be the Queen of England. Now, Henry's still married to Catherine at this point, so just give me a second, I'll deal with that first. Yeah. Cool. So Henry now wants a divorce. Now, in those days, we're Catholic. So he goes up to the Pope, and he says, Pope, I want a divorce. And the Pope says, why? And Henry says, well, I really want to sleep with Anne Boleyn. And the Pope's like, no. So if it's not a good reason, come up with something better. So Henry says, okay, all right, how about this? Catherine of Aragon was married to my brother, which means that she is my sister, which means that this relationship is incest, which is illegal, which means my marriage to her isn't legal, which means I'm not married, which means I'm single, which means I can marry Anne Boleyn. How about that? Now, the problem with this argument is that in those days, marriage wasn't just a matter of saying I do and signing a piece of paper. It needed to be consummated. The man and the woman had to have slept together first at least once. And the Pope said, well, hold on a second. Your brother was 13 when he was married to Catherine of Aragon, and then he died. I don't think at the age of 13 he was sleeping with Catherine of Aragon. I think the only person he was sleeping with was himself. Don't ask how the Pope knew that gesture. Okay? He just did. So no, you're still married, deal with it, Pope out. And Henry says, fine, and kicks out the Catholic Church and starts his own new church, the Church of England, which is a Protestant church. Now he still needs to ask the head of this new Protestant church for a divorce. Because he'd made himself the head of the church, it was quite a fast conversation. Can I have a divorce? Yes. Thank you. Nice beard. Done. So, Henry divorces Catherine and marries Anne Boleyn. So, she's got warm hands too. So they get married. She becomes pregnant. She's like, hey, it's going to be a boy. Henry's like, good, I love boys. And Anne Boleyn gives birth to a girl, Elizabeth, who goes on to become Elizabeth I. So she's kind of cool, but we don't know that yet. And she had promised she would give Henry a son. She didn't know how it worked. On top of this, Anne Boleyn may have been sleeping with other people. And when you do this and your husband is the king, buddy, that's a really bad idea. So, Henry arrests her and throws her into the Tower of London. Now, he does not arrest her on charges of adultery. He arrests her on charges of being a witch! Because he's like, that's the only way she could have seduced me, right? So he throws her into the tower and chops off her head. 2 days later, so he's not that upset by this, Henry VIII marries a woman called Jane Seymour. So, they get married. I think I'm the one with the really cold hands, everyone else is fine. They get married, she becomes pregnant, she's like, hey, it's going to be a boy. And Henry says, good, I love boys. Now, not like that. Now, Jane Seymour, unfortunately, was a very petite young lady. And in those days, childbirth was very, very dangerous. Not just for the mother, but also for the child. So Henry stops and says, okay, sons are more important than queens. Because I can always get another queen after 2 days, another son is at least 9 months' work. So not that he had to do it, but still. So instead of going through with a natural childbirth, they go through with a cesarean section. They take a knife, they slice Jane Seymour open. You can tell I also do Jack the Ripper to this, right? And they pull forth a child. And it's a boy! Hooray! Good job. You can tell I've never held a child before in my life, right? My only experience comes from watching The Lion King. Here, hold this.
There you go.
Cool. So they stitched. No, you're still not. They stitched Jane Seymour back. You dropped the child. They stitched Jane Seymour back up, and she's fine. The surgery went very well, except that they didn't know about germ theory back in those days, and so the knife that they used was not as clean as it should have been. And 2 weeks later, Jane Seymour gets an infection, and she dies. And Henry is crushed. He was like, I really like this one. Because she gave me a son, that being all women were good for back in those days. So Henry says, okay. Henry says, okay, I have one son. That's good, but it's not enough. I need lots more to continue on the Tudor line. But he can't be bothered finding a new wife for himself, so instead, he sends out letters to all the noble families of Europe, saying, okay, send me a portrait, a painting of your most beautiful, loveliest princesses of your house. I'll go through those portraits, I'll pick the prettiest one, I will marry her. So the letters all go out, the paintings all come in, he puts them all up into a big room. He says to his advisors, okay guys, I've invented this amazing new game. It's called Tinder. It's older than you think. So yes, no. Ooh, this one's pretty. Yes, and that was a woman called Anne of Cleves. Now, Henry and Anne, they message each other backwards and forwards with actual messengers and ships, and because it's before the internet. And they agree to get married, which is like the fastest Tinder date ever. Okay, don't do this. And here's why. Henry goes up to the church. He's feeling pretty pleased with himself. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get lucky tonight. Anne of Cleves comes in that day by ship. She puts on all of her beautiful bridal gowns. They still have not met each other at this point. She goes up to the church and she walks up the aisle to where Henry is waiting. So Henry turns to her, she turns to him. He lifts off her veil and he says, oh my God! You do not look like your portrait.
Oh man.
Anne's portrait had been very heavily photoshopped. Henry actually goes up to one of his mates 2 days later and says, on beholding my new wife for the first time, I thought I was looking at a horse. It's bitchy, right? Now she is a woman, by the way, I guess. As you're not being typecast. Now, Henry marries her anyway, because he's a man of his word. He said that he would, and he did. But he never consummates the marriage. He never sleeps with her. He says, look, I'm sorry, it's not working. Now, she does quite well by this. She gets an income, she gets a staff, she gets her own castle, because Henry VIII at 45, he could just give them away. But she also gets a divorce, because Henry says, look, it's not you, it's me. So I don't like you. Go away. Now Henry says, okay, that did not work. How about this? Find me the fairest maiden in all of England, I will marry her. So they find him a girl by the name of Catherine Howard. I feel very sorry for Catherine Howard. Okay, Catherine Howard was 18. Is that right? At this point in the story, 4 wives down, Henry VIII is pushing 50, so he's rather a bit older. He is also morbidly obese. He has gout. His right leg doesn't work. It actually still has an open festering wound in it. He also has syphilis. He has chlamydia. He has type 2 diabetes. He does have an amazing beard. Okay, it's not all that. So you're lucky. On the wedding night, Catherine Howard, she goes up to the bedroom, and Henry VIII is kind of sitting there, waiting for her, going, ah! Hello! Come to daddy. I apologize for the therapy after this. Now the two of them sleep together once. Catherine Howard then says, never again! And I can understand why. And she starts hanging out with other courtiers, men and women closer to her own age. Henry gets very upset at this, because she has been spending time with people younger and prettier than he is, which is anyone else in England at the time. He decides this means that she is cheating on him, so he sends her to the Tower of London and chops off her head. You're out too. Yeah, you're looking a bit nervous now.
I know what comes next, don't worry.
Henry VIII says, okay, I still only have one son, which you have definitely dropped at this point. I did that to someone once. They said, oh, okay, and started holding the child like this, and I was like, it's not a bowling ball. I still only have one son, I still need more, so I need a new wife. So he marries a woman by the name of Catherine Parr. Henry then becomes ill. Catherine Parr nurses him through this illness. He dies, and she survives. Yeah, so she wins, basically. Thank you. Now, if you want to remember the wives of Henry VIII, and unless you want my job, you don't have to. But there's a poem we've been learning in this country for 400 years. It goes like this. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Or, if you want to remember the names, it's also quite easy, because there's apparently only 3 women's names in England at the time. It goes Catherine, Anne, Jane, Anne, Catherine. Then it starts again. Catherine, and then she dies. He dies. So, yeah, that's it. Cool. Big round of applause for our 6 volunteers. Thank you very much.
Good job, Ryan.